From a very young age, we are asked what do we want to be when we grow up. If you made blanket forts, played with blocks, or simply drew, chances are you were meant to be an architect. Because you don't see the world as it is, you see the world as you are. Today, when prompted why we choose to be an architect, most common responses can be summed up to one line: it's something I've always wanted to do. However, architecture is a vast, flexible, and versatile field of interest. Even if you know you want to be an architect, the question is, what kind of an architect do you want to be? Hey everyone, welcome to Marquitecta. My name is Marco, and with my degree in architecture and digital fabrication, my expertise in the use of digital tools and design, and over a decade of experience as an academic researcher and a professor, I share knowledge about architecture and digital design tools in workshops and online courses. In this video, we go over two main concepts behind the question of what kind of an architect do you want to be: the education requirements and the career choices. We can tackle our prior education experience and knowledge retrospectively, examining it while having the foresight of a career in architecture-related work and the fluctuations that can occur in the field. So let's see what is there for us to learn about when it comes to education. We can start with the observable universe, which is around 93 billion light years across, or around 8.8 times 10 to the power of 26 meters in size. On this scale, we can explore the earth sciences like astronomy and geosciences. Then we can move to the other side of the size spectrum and observe the Planck's length at 1.61 times 10 to the power of minus 35. This is the smallest size in the universe, much smaller than the neutrino, which is supposed to be around 10 to the power of minus 24. So this is when we get familiar with the particles and the physical sciences like physics and chemistry. Bringing these particles in such a way that they create a living thing is truly amazing. This is when we introduce the life sciences, which includes all branches of biology. An interesting thing is that humans are roughly positioned in the middle of this size range. Once we have humans, we have to introduce the social sciences that govern the laws, ethics, and our cognitive and psychological development. But not only that, if we ever want to discover the secrets of our universe, we also need to include the formal sciences that include things like logic and mathematics. Based on these observations about the world around us, we can introduce the hierarchy of sciences, which represents an interrelated stack of research fields. However, this is not all we can explore. As John Keating once said,
medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for.
Hence, we have to include art as one giant area to explore and something that stimulates an individual's thoughts, emotions, beliefs, or ideas through the senses. This is when we talk about creating something and applying our knowledge to generate something that has not existed up until that moment in time. As with art, the same can be done with the hierarchy of sciences, where we can utilize our knowledge to create something new and useful to improve the world around us. This is where we introduce the applied sciences. So now that we know all the areas we can explore and learn about, let's place them on this radar chart. A radar chart displays multivariate data stacked at an axis with the same center point. This chart features 7 axes with quantitative variables where 0 is located at the center and 1 is located at the end of the axis. In our case, we will use the space in between the axes to observe knowledge and education progress in specific areas. So, starting at a very young age, up until kindergarten, we are taught a bit of everything, but at a very low level, without us even being aware of it, getting to know the world around us and the social behavior with our friends. If we wanted to draw a parallel, it would be similar to our parents making us pancakes. We know that something is being made and served for us, but we seldom have an idea of how to do it. Then comes elementary school, and we enlarge the amount of knowledge equally in all areas. We get familiar with the sciences that are within the hierarchy and explore them in real life through practical examples and social encounters. Following our story, this is when we get familiarized with the pancake making process, how to prepare the batter, how to cook, how to flavor it and serve it. And then we have to make our first major choice in life, figuring out if we want to learn more or begin practicing and exploiting a trait, as in applied science occupation. If we choose to learn more, we may want to know more from each of the main areas or directly pursue one or a couple of those that we are really interested in. Following our story, we can explore our knowledge equally in all areas like gymnasium, high schools, or specifically in art or technical sciences. During this course, we work on our own points of interest, hopefully developing enthusiasm for what comes next. If we start tracking our education and career progress at this stage, we haven't even started our journey, with all of this being labeled as the ground level or number 0. At this level, the real question of enrolling into architecture emerges. Mainly, we develop the artistic and the applied science areas, trying to enhance our knowledge and experience in the area. We may run into mistakes along the way, but we cannot be good at something before being bad at it first. We get to finish our bachelor studies and then, as a cherry on top, explore something that has never been done before, reaching the outskirts of what is known and creating a pimple in it. This is the only way how to expand the boundary between the known and the unknown. Dinara Kasko, as a prior architect and a culinary master now, would definitely be able to present a version of a pancake never before seen and hence deliver a unique experience. Now we can finally move along our progress chart to the next level, or number 1, and be wary of all the variations that can occur at this level. The university education in architecture in the neighboring area of Serbia has different instances pertaining to bachelor and master studies and their length. Some involve 4+1, some 4+2, some are integrated with 5 or 6 years, and some are 3+2. Whatever the case may be, the university education serves to teach you how to learn and tackle the situations that lay ahead in your future career. Nurturing your personal value system and working on useful skills are a bonus. After graduation, you might feel at the peak of what you can do with your newfound knowledge and elaborate skill set, ready to take the world of architecture. However, the sad reality is that your skills will probably be underused in architectural bureaus given the amount of mundane tasks that are needed, like drafting, specification writing, and so on. Back to good old pancake making that is familiar and safe. Even though it seems uneventful, it is part of your internship where you learn how the business side works, how to develop experience, and expand the social range. Now, even though this portion of your professional career can seem harsh, it is necessary in order to find your likes and dislikes, your niche, and a proper team and work environment that motivates you and challenges you just a bit beyond your comfort level. In this way, you get to grow but also enjoy the process along the way. And if you cannot find such a place, you can always start your own practice and work from there. As Cicero said, "But above all, we must decide who and what manner of men we wish to be, and what calling in life we would follow, and this is the most difficult problem in the world." So following the university education, we move to the next level, number 2, which includes up to 3 years of internship where you find what suits you best in the industry of architecture-related professions, after which you can take the state exam and can be called a licensed architect. Moving to the final level, number 3, which is supposed to be maintaining your license in the field you have chosen. But do you know what is the field you should choose?
Can you tell me what it is? Do you even know?
Thank you, Agent Smith. Do you even know what types of architecture-related professions are there? Maybe we can take a look and see if this helps us answer the question of what kind of an architect we want to be. Now, the road to reaching stage 3 of your educational and professional endeavor seems linear and straightforward, but it is far from it. It is closer to various time travel concepts and their timelines, explored through paths that revert back on themselves. The main reason has to do with our perception of the architectural career and its actual look and feel. As Rem Koolhass has said,
the irony of an architect is that he or she cannot define their own agenda. You can have a whole series of preoccupations, kind of interest, competences, etc., but you have no control over kind of any sequence in which it will be developed or unfolded or applied.
Hence, we tend to strive away from certain architecture-related professions simply because we are ignorant about it or scared to try. But as they say, a person often meets his destiny on the road he took to avoid it. So in order to have the highest chance of choosing something we like instead of avoiding something we don't, let's take a look at what architecture-related career choices there are. One way of looking at your future architecture career can be seen by Frank Parsons, who says that the building of a career is quite as difficult a problem as the building of a house. In that sense, all relevant design process outputs and drawings for a building of a house can be replaced with assessing, exploring, decision-making, and planning for building a career. Given such an approach, there is a great quote which states, "These results demonstrate that an architectural education is excellent preparation for many sorts of positions." In this instance, the career choices are given in reference to the main study areas we talked about, like science and art, also including education and construction, as well as more traditional occupations that are required in contemporary architectural firms. These quotes and career overview are presented by Lee Waldrep in this great book, Becoming an Architect, which showcases a multitude of important aspects related to architectural education and practice with testimonies from architects in the field. Be sure to check it out and let us know if it coincides with the reality of practicing architecture in your country. However, we can strive away from the study areas and focus on the relevant questions that are at its core relevant to architecture. This can come down to 4 main areas to include, or 4 main questions. The first one is creativity, and whether you are more akin to designing new things or working on other people's ideas to make them happen in a more technical scope. Then, we can involve the use of materials and colors that complement the project and ask if we are good at incorporating it into a coherent project. Next, architecture projects can be questioned on their interpolation into the environment, asking whether we should take environment into consideration and how the building impacts the community and sustainability issues during exploitation. Finally, we have to ask the question of whether the architect is really the master builder, as its name implies. If an architect is the jack of all trades and can observe the entire project holistically and incorporate each of the seemingly detached areas into a whole. If we take these 4 simple areas and questions and place them into a decision tree flowchart, we can create our own pathway for determining what kind of an architect we can be. If we say yes, we go up the chart. If we say no, we go down the chart. In the end, we can get a very rough, personally curated list of architecture-related professions that can be chosen by answering the 4 questions pertaining to design, material, environment, and a holistic approach. So we can start by answering yes to the design area and observing the design-related professions. In it, we can see some professions that are directly related to architecture and some that are marginally related, so we can darken them a bit to focus on the first set. If we answer yes to all the other questions, we come to the first group of professions, where the first one is the 3D visualization artist. Here we can see the work by NAR Studio and here the Kaiserbold Studio, based in Novi Sad. This profession definitely involves a creative design process, modeling and creating a scene from nothing, texturing it with materials, including environmental lighting and location-based guidelines, and a holistic eye to put it all together. It involves modeling and rendering with interactive or VR visualizations, battling for its position next to the static renders. Next, we can observe the interior designer, which includes all the traits we have discussed, but focused on product placement, furniture choice, and composition, and a room-scale design solution. Here are a couple of examples by Zidane and Character Studio. As opposed to the prior, it is not only a digital image, but it needs a transition from the digital model and media to the real world, which involves dealing with contractors and carpenters. As opposed to the 3D artist and the interior designer, a residential architect requires a license, given that there is a transition from a room scale to a building scale, where structural analysis and integrity is paramount for a safe project. This project is the Visum House, done by Model Art Architects, a Novi Sad-based architectural bureau. You can check out other residential housing on a larger scale by Kuzmanov and Partners as well. The holistic element here is pushed further, given that a myriad of elements needs to be taken into consideration, which should harmonically fuse in the end. Also, visualizations are an important aspect of presenting the unbuilt project, which means that interconnectivity is welcomed. A position of a research architect is placed in several places in this large designer group, given that all these areas have certain status quo aspects that can be questioned and explored in greater depth instead of just laterally. Digital Design Center is one such research hub that explores advanced digital tools and fabrication methods in design-related projects in architecture and urban planning. Publishing achievements in international journals and networking with fellow scholars helps cure the novel ideas and paradigms with other research facilities that research similar topics like Block Research Group. Now, the green architect is placed here as someone who is not akin to a holistic design approach. Green architects follow the philosophy that advocates sustainable energy sources, the conservation of energy, and not only the use of plants and vegetations. The lack of a holistic approach is only used here to showcase that predetermined solutions are used that seem to already function on their own, which diminishes their integration into a complicated whole. This does not mean that a green architecture approach is not applicable with a holistic design approach. Since this taxonomy is in no way final or accurate, please feel free to comment so we can see where we can take it from there. Next is the commercial architect. This is the first one that has to tackle the question of the environment. For example, if we observe Rem Koolhass, we can say that he is a kind of an architect who works in contradictions, where the Casa de la Musica project is depicted as a meteor that hit a dense and culturally rich urban area and is placed as a point of interest on its own. As Rem Koolhass has said,
first of all, I think that similarity is not a guarantee for contextual kind of sensitivity. Secondly, there are many situations that there simply is no context. So it was just maybe a kind of ironic statement that context is in many cases a kind of overestimated issue.
However, tackling it in the interior is a task all on its own, as the holistic coherence rises with complex programs that need to coexist functionally. In this example of the Moscow concert hall, we can see the vastness and the design done by the foreign architects. However, the fabrication of the hall was done by Interier Yankovic from Novi Sad, which means that interconnectivity does not only reach visualization, but fabrication as well. And then we reach the extremes. This does not entail designing for extreme sports, but for extreme weather conditions, where any sort of architectural interpolation or sustainability with the environment is definitely not a priority. Hence, this is a no on environment group. Tackling harsh environments like the desert, polar caps, or even the surface of Mars can be a daunting task. People usually talk about the necessity to explore the world outside of our planet and deplete the already scarce resources. However, exploring beyond our planet and our comfort zone can give us the answers to the questions we don't yet know to ask. This is why it is important to have a research architect in this group as well. Then we come to the group of professions where materials are not as important, since they deal with the surrounding and less with the building itself. In this case, we can talk about the design and planning of outdoor spaces that are practical and aesthetically pleasing, such as gardens and recreational areas. And lastly, we can tackle the last group of professions where the materials and the environment are not high on the priority list. And in this group, the urban planner or designer has to holistically take into consideration all the relevant contextual aspects related to large portions of lands in reference to the existing urban matrices and regulations. One interesting and creative design approach can be seen in this contest solution by Zaha Hadid Architects, which incorporates curve and parametrically designed forms in reference to important landmarks and the existing street grid. However, given the vast amount of requirements, researching improved ways of designing is a must, which is where the research into procedurally generated urban matrices exists with software such as City Engine. By introducing a street center line, the program is capable of generating a street and a whole block within the encapsulated street grid. In this manner, various design solutions are available with the urban project constraints. In the end, we can check out the career choices that deal with design and materials, but are not directly tied up with architecture, such as the furniture designer exhibited through Barcelona chairs by Miss van der Rohe, or in curved forms by Matthias Pliznik and his bench designs. Next comes the product designs, which include industrial design grade level of thinking and implementation. Now, this designer group package is only one way of overseeing relevant career choices. We look forward to seeing your depiction or taxonomy in the comments below. However, this is only one half of the list, as we have to explore the more technically driven professions where design input and aesthetically pleasing solutions are not a priority. As we did before, we can temporarily darken the marginally related professions to have a better overview of the entire group. In order to tackle this portion of the career choice, we can examine this book, What Kind of an Architect Are You?, where the author incorporates important architectural notions, linking them to architectural practices, instead of study areas or questions as we did before. Including terms such as preservation, history, activism, and analysis, just to name a few, opens up the possibility to introduce career options that really deal with important topic of architectural restorations, which is the first career choice we can tackle. In this, we can have creative freedom, but given that the structure is already designed, we are there to restore the previous look, taking into consideration the materials, the environment, but not having to practice a complex, cohesive integration of all relevant skilled professionals that can contribute to its being aesthetically pleasing and functional, most of the time. Even though it is placed in this technical career section, creativity can be seen in the way people have different depictions of the Notre Dame spire while trying to restore the look to its formal glory. Then we can explore the profession of a sustainability consultant. Usually, an expert in this field is not really interested in the building environment integration aspect or a holistic overview, as this career choice serves to consult the main creative decision makers on what other relative design criteria needs to be taken into consideration for the project to become greener. So this manner of integrating various design criteria, parameters, and specifications can be daunting, which is why a BIM manager is an important position in this study group. Actually, using BIM, which stands for Building Information Modeling, is incorporated on a larger level, since it helps the relevant experts in the field communicate more efficiently, and what is more important, during the exploitation period as well. In this case, the accent is on the bigger picture and less on the specific materials that need to be used, which is why this career falls under this group. Software like ArchiCAD and Revit are excellent in achieving this integration in the software environment. However, in the field, on the construction site, a project manager is someone who knows what each branch of the project is doing and how to mitigate the problems various overlapping expertise fields have. It is similar to a conductor of a symphonic orchestra who knows what each instrument is capable of and when to include it in order to make a cohesive narrative. One person who can assist in this managing is a specification writer, whose responsibilities include things like coordinating with design teams, budgeting for materials, maintaining standards, design review, and scheduling. Given that they are only one cog in the large machine, they can perhaps be classified with the group of not observing the entire process holistically. Similar thing can be said for a drafter, which is an essential part of any project but only a small portion of it. Drafters prepare technical drawings and plans, converting the designs of architects and engineers into technical drawings. Then comes one career choice that is definitely important for managing firms of any size, which is a workplace consultant. Making the process of designing and building any kind of a structure is difficult, but what makes it even harder is working in an environment with inefficient workflows and dysfunctional workplace atmosphere. Even though material and in the environment are not as important here, observing the entire team as a whole is a must. Lastly, we can take a look at the industrial architect, which follows quality standards to ensure that industrial buildings are safely built for production or human use, including warehouses, factories, plants, and similar. Now, the question we pose at the start can vary here, but in this case, we can say that the answer to all these questions is no, only in the sense that these typologies are already significantly defined and do not require extensive holistic integration of the environment, materials, and the design process. Of course, this is far-fetched, especially when we see how creativity is used in industrial building in Copenhagen by BIG. Turning back to the more marginal career choices, we can introduce a photographer, which is similar to a 3D artist, but in the real world. Having less control over lighting and camera positions can be troubling, but the composition can really help create the realistic look, not only in depicting, but in feeling as well. We also have the political architect as a career choice, but not political in contemporary terms, but in the sense that they have an agenda or a manifest of some kind, propagating different architecture paradigms to a broader scope of people. Questioning the status quo helps the architectural language evolve, as the things in nature are prone to do. If we take a look at the books from the past, like Le Corbusier's Towards a New Architecture, and compare it, for example, to Big's Yes is More, we can see how the zeitgeist has changed and how different media and delivery can impact the community throughout the world. In the end, we have the educational parts. As Mr. Schneebly says,
but anyway, I just decided to give up on myself and become a teacher because those that can't do, teach. And those that can't teach Jim. Am I right?
Joking aside, educational vocation is a tough one. Getting ideas across and planting them in the future generations of architects seems like an impossible task. This is mostly due to the varying value system we all have and the necessity to be different and unique. Even though this is placed in the technical group of career choices, it requires serious creative design thinking to animate the students to learn and consume the knowledge at their own pace, as is the case with the creation of this video. Seeing all of these career choices through the lens of study areas, questions, or notions all represent valid ways of defining what kind of an architect do you want to be. But when I ask people what kind of an architect they want to be, most responses I get are related to the values. I want to be a good architect, a conscientious one, help the community, help my hometown prosper, and so on. As Bryan Bell's testimony from the book What Kind of an Architect Are You states, "When I left architecture school, I got a job with Stephen Hall. After 6 months, I was saying to myself, if this is architecture, I don't want to be an architect. As much as I admire him and love a lot of what he does, Stephen Hall's philosophy is to ignore the client. In one magazine article, he said, I agreed to do the house because the client promised not to interfere in the design. I do think there's something wrong with that philosophy." You can find out more in the testimonies like this in the book What Kind of an Architect Are You by Udo Greinacher, sorry for butchering the pronunciation. So in today's video, we have observed one version of an education path most people take and how it is intrinsic for architecture. We have explored various approaches to tackling the question of what kind of an architect do you want to be through study areas, questions, and notions, but also the value system. So what kind of an architect do you want to be? Did you change your mind after watching the video? Did you learn something new? Share your stories with the community in the comment section below. For me personally, I never knew what kind of an architect I wanted to be. I did not have this insight into how many approaches or career choices there are. I did a short internship with a traditional architectural bureau domestically and abroad and found out that I don't relate to it or find joy in it at all. I thought that I can do something different, and something I always wanted to do was to incorporate the scientific parts with the creative ones, which parametric design approach actually allowed me to do. Getting a research position at the university helped me realize all of these aspects beyond my wildest dreams, and ushered in a new era of applied research where everything we research we can put into practice and fabricate. This notion that you can think of something and see it brought to fruition really makes the experience feel godlike. As Pablo Picasso has once said, the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. Same can be applied to architectural career. If you found this video useful, please consider subscribing as we are on our way to reach 1,000 subscribers. I thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.